Hello, welcome to Live from Mama Dog Studios. We're here today with an interview with a special guest, and we're going to have a conversation all about film production and Oakland. So please welcome our guest, Mayor Sheng Thao.
Hi, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you doing?
We're hanging in there.
I'm so glad you could come. Thank you for coming to our studio and sharing your story with us, and also just talking to us a little bit about some of the cool things that are in the pipeline. I'm excited.
No, I'm incredibly excited for the city of Oakland. I think there are many opportunities here, especially when we talk about our arts and culture and our young people.
So I want to go back in time a little bit. Let's go on a little journey. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? And I've done a little research, but I want you to share in your own words your story, and then talk a little bit about some of the influences from your background that has led you to pursue politics.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of the reason why I'm here today is that growing up and really seeing the struggles of my parents. My parents, you see, they're refugees. Hmong people, we do not have a country of our own, but we have our own culture, a different culture, our own language. We lived off of the mountains in Laos and Vietnam, and so during the Vietnam War, many of the Hmong people were displaced and seen as traitor because they helped the U.S. And so my parents met in the refugee camp and actually landed here in the United States to actually start a new life in 1979. And so, born and raised in Stockton, California. Right after high school, I graduated and moved out here, lived my whole adult life here in the Bay Area, and got into my first relationship, and unfortunately it was a domestic violence relationship. And so what started off as just a finger poking in the head from my abuser became a full-on physical, closed fist, kicking. I left at 6 months when he actually dragged me down from the bed and kicked me while I was pregnant with his unborn child. And so, I didn't want that for my son. So I left, became homeless, and when I did give birth, I gave birth at Martinez County Hospital, and we were just, by ourselves. And I really thank the nurses to this day. If it wasn't for the nurses who really followed me for the next 2 weeks afterwards, teaching me how to bathe my son and feed my son because I was couch surfing, living in my car. I don't know what would have happened. At the time, I thought that was like a normal thing that nurses do, but of course we know now, in hindsight, that's not what they do. And that was important to me because that's what helps me lead with values first, is knowing that when the humanity in people is really what changes people's trajectory in how successful they are in life, or just like having that hope to continue to survive.
I love your journey. I feel like when you talk about that sort of atypical American story, right? You have that the child of immigrants, right? And then also really climbing in terms of your personal story and building and educating yourself and becoming the mayor of a city. And I feel like when I hear your story, I think a lot about the community, because you benefited from those nurses, right? There was always the support from the community, and now as a mayor, that's very much a part of your agenda, is building community. Recently, you had the State of the City address in Oakland, where you announced a lot of powerful things for your agenda, and a lot of them are very community oriented, right? And the Oakland Film Council was one of those things. And when you think about the power of story, why do you think stories are important for community and for culture?
The difference between my administration and previous is that I'm really leaning in hard on our young people, right? And I know that through storytelling, it can really give hope, and not just hope, but it allows for people to feel like I'm not in this by myself, right? Remember the moment when I told you that when I was in the domestic violence relationship, I literally thought that I was in such a unique position. And I wasn't. But the power of storytelling is just not, being able to connect with different groups of people and have an understanding that we are all human on this earth, and we are that one race, right? Humans. And at the end of the day, we go through very similar trials and tribulations. And so the power of storytelling is incredibly important. And we just hope that we learn from the stories that we tell from the past that we can grow and be better for it. But more so than that, I think it's a true outlet for our young people and for adults and, for everyone. I think that that's the most healing way to actually heal and then heal others. We always talk about hurt people, but healed people heal people too. And so for me, it's incredibly important because that is the foundation and the basis for everything that we are going through today here in the city of Oakland. When you talk about the public safety concerns, right? When you talk about the economic gaps that we're seeing, the racial economic statuses that are actually widening here in the city of Oakland and across the nation as well too. And so how do we tackle these things? And it's through storytelling.
100%. I mean, I'm a storyteller. This whole platform is about creatives and artists and activists and people and changemakers. And so you definitely fit into that, all of those boxes, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think when you think about opportunity, when I think about the Oakland Film Council and the efforts to establish Oakland in the Bay Area on a larger scale as a hub of filmmaking, right? I think of opportunity for the city, for the youth, for the people. So I just want to hear kind of from your lens, what are some of the opportunities that you foresee in some of those other arenas when you think about what this could bring to Oakland?
I think that, a lot of times we have to really look at our cities. Like, what is the unique feature of the city of Oakland or the city of San Francisco or whatever have you? But here in the city of Oakland, when you say Oakland, Oakland does equate to culture. Oakland is culture. And I do believe that everyone feels that way. People want to move to Oakland for its culture. We always hear that, right? People want to be in Oakland because of its terrific culture, whether it be food, artistry, all of that folds into one. We are home of the Black Panthers. We are one of the most activated city in the whole nation. We are making progress here for many different policies throughout the nation. And so a lot of people are looking to us. So why is it that we don't actually not just capitalize on that, but invest in it? I did announce the Film Council, and I think that that was a huge mistake that we have yet to invest in film industry. We have great talent here in the city of Oakland, right? Anywhere from Zendaya, Kamau Bell lives here. Many, many great film people, just not the people in front of the screens, but also the terrific producer and executives from behind the scenes as well, too. And so how do we take that great talent here in the city of Oakland that's already here? And these are great talents that are choosing to continue to live here and be a part of the social fabric. How do we actually utilize that so that we can prepare our young people in the future? And the answer for me from a government side is that it's easy. We invest in it so that we can actually allow for there to be space for arts and culture. But at the same time, we are investing into our young people so that they can understand and know that arts and culture is a pathway to success, right? It's just not going to college. It's just not, a trade school. It's also, you can also choose arts and culture.
Culture is what drives everything. So I think that's a beautiful thing, and I really support that initiative and that agenda and bringing, Oakland, bringing film into the limelight in Oakland. I do wonder, though, let's say, hypothetically, someone's like, I don't care about film, I don't care about arts. What would you say to that part of your audience that's like, why are we investing in this when it's not going to impact me personally?
I would say that actually it does impact everybody immensely, because we are always, trying to figure out how do we fund services. And we're always just looking at the same amount of money at the city, right? You have a budget. We're looking at that same amount of money, yet the services and the demand for services continues to increase and increase, but it's the same amount of finite resources. And so with this being said, I know for a fact that because we didn't have the infrastructure in place to actually support the film industry here, that we left on the table $80 million for just one production. So I think a lot of people know the Stars movie, Blind Spotting, right? And so even with that movie, it would have and could have been filmed here 100% in the city of Oakland, but we didn't have the infrastructure. And so it wasn't filmed here 100%. So that's the $80 million that we're leaving on the table. And that is only for one production. So that's the piece where it's like we could have taken those resources, created a larger infrastructure for our pie, right? Our financial pie here in the city of Oakland. And that's more services we can pump out, whether we decide it's more violence prevention services, whether it's cleaning up the streets, whether, it could be anything that the city's in charge of taking care of.
Well, I mean, if I could vote on this specific thing, you've got my support. I mean, I think that that's such a wonderful explanation of that, because it's like a trickle-down effect, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if the pie is bigger, then everything will be lifted up from that.
That's exactly right. And, when I entered office just earlier this year in January, we were faced and inherited a $360 million deficit over 2 years. This is the largest deficit that the city has ever seen in its history. But we led with values first. And leading with values, what does that mean? That meant that I refused to cut anything from our youth, meaning Parks and Recs, you're not touching that money at all, right? Not just that, but our city staff, they're overworked, they're working 5 jobs, and I didn't want them to actually feel the stress of, am I going to be laid off? And of course, we're not delivering the service at the level that I would like to see for our constituents, so why would we even lay off any city workers? So we were able to balance this huge deficit without laying off workers, and of course, without touching youth programming. And it comes back to, the finite resources we have, right? And if we already know that we're leaving $80 million on the table, why wouldn't we invest in this venture with our talented film industry here in the city of Oakland? Not only will it bring resources to the city in dollar amounts, but it also give opportunities to so many Oaklanders that are interested in the field.
No, it's wonderful. I think it's such a great thing to add, and it's I wonder, like, how did this come to fruition when you decided, hey, wait, what about film production? We have so much talent here. Let's harness this. Like, how did this kind of come to your team and become an idea?
I really give it up to the film industry that is here, including, Pete Nix and Kamal Bell. They have already been formed into a group. And it was my understanding that they have been trying to get this off the ground for many years. And so with that being said, I've always been curious. I could go to San Francisco and I could see a full-on set. I think I saw The Matrix filming there with all the burnt-out vehicles. And then I've always asked myself, why not Oakland? And so when I got into office and I really dug into it, it was just the why not was because of lack of political will. Lack of political will. And it hurts my heart to understand that so many opportunities went by the wayside for whatever reason, that there was no political will to actually push forward this film council. And so with that being said, I always say, if you're going to ask something from me, I'm going to tell you that you're going to need to be part of the solution too. I can't do this on my own. I am one person. And so when I had the first initial conversation with the Film Council, this is what I said. It's like, I'm going to need you all to really help us at the city, because we have so many different things that we're handling. I have a mighty team of like 10 people in my office for the whole mighty team for the whole city of almost 500,000 people. And so they stepped up, immediately. And now, we're both working hard on all different cylinders. And that is the culture of Oakland, is like everyone's scrappy. We're all going to come together and we're going to get it done. And so I'm really excited that the film industry here in the city of Oakland, that they've all stepped up, because I know for a fact we wouldn't be able to do this as quickly as we have if they were not organized already.
No, this is a beautiful partnership, I feel.
Oh, yes. I'm excited for it, yeah.
Yeah, me too. I also want to talk to you a little bit about, like, what's next. So you talked about political will. We have that on board now. So it's like, to get this off the ground, to like really make this less of an idea and more of an actuality, what are kind of the next steps, like, for people that are watching this? How do they say, I like this idea too? How do I support? How can people support and get involved?
If anybody would like to get involved, they should definitely email my office, involved whether it's funding or involved whether it's like, hey, I have some equipment that I can donate. We're looking for all of that, right, to really create a hub here for film. And we know that it takes a lot of infrastructure, a lot of, tools and cameras and lighting and whatever have you. And so they can definitely email us at officeofthemayor@oaklandca.gov. But more so than that, the next steps is all of the policy making, right? There needs to be incentives for the film industry, right, in order for it to work. And so we're looking at possible incentives that we could give from the city side. And then not just that, but really look into space. And so if somebody out there owns property or space in the city of Oakland that is large enough, they can also reach out to us, right? So space is going to be key. And of course, if anybody is interested in joining the council itself, they should also reach out to us as well.
Awesome. Space like this?
Space like this,
Mama Dog Studios.
Yes, Mama Dog Studio, absolutely, But that's the whole point of it too, is really incubating not just the talent, but incubating spaces like this, incubating, businesses that actually are renting out the film equipment. And it's just not about the actual film itself. It's about artistry and really getting artists together so that they can be more creative. And so we're also looking into what does that look like to build housing for our artists, right? And we know that the best kind of, whether it be film, music, or what have you, is through collaboration. And so creating that hub so that our artists can afford to live here in the city of Oakland is going to be key as well, too. There's so many aspects and ancillary parts to all of this, and we're really taking it on and taking it seriously to ensure that it is successful.
I think that's amazing. I also love what you just said about residence for artists, because I think that that's a big thing that the Bay Area has lost because it's gotten so expensive and people have moved away, and artists are one of those groups of people, so that's amazing.
Yeah.
I just want to throw a random question at you personally.
Yes.
When you think about stories, when you were growing up and you think about movies and stories, was there a film that you just watched on repeat? It was a VHS tape. Maybe you were just like, this is my jam.
That's a little embarrassing.
No, I want to get into Sheng Thao's life outside of the mayoral office.
You know what's interesting is that the Hmong people, we really didn't have a written out language until the 1950s when the Mormon missionaries came out to actually develop a language for us. So my mom is completely illiterate. She doesn't even know how to read and write in the Hmong language because it's so new. And so it was through storytelling. Right, so we are known as good storytellers. That's the only way you pass history down. But in regards to what was the movie that I always popped in, I have to say it was Mary Poppins.
Really?
Yes, I love watching Mary Poppins and going to bed because there's something so amazing about having this woman be able to fly in the sky. First of all, a woman, right, who had this I don't know, it's not a skill set, but had these magical powers where she can just come down from the clouds and make everything just perfect, but at the same time to, have her relationship with the kids, that building of trust between the youth and an adult and how she was able to connect with them at their level, it just, growing up, I'm a middle child, number 7 out of 10. I think I yearned for that a lot. I didn't get a lot of attention. And so, seeing that is it's almost like wishful thinking of hey, maybe one day somebody will pay enough attention, right?
Yeah.
And so if you asked a very personal question, so that's my real answer. Yeah.
Not embarrassing at all. She was a superhero. I never thought about it that way until you just, I was like,
Yeah.
Well, when you run for president, you will have my vote, I'm just saying. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing your story and talking to us a little bit about the Oakland Film Council. And I'm really excited to stay tuned and see where this goes and where all of your agendas go over the next 3 years. So Thank you so much, and best of luck, Mayor Sheng Thao.
Thank you for having me.